Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter. In this case, we have the chapter number 9, and it's called Social Justice in Action. In this chapter, we are going to talk about the problem of diversity requirements in universities and the potential consequences of students taking their ideological beliefs into the professional world. This before taking into account the formation of a social justice industry dedicated to training companies and institutions to enact the truth according to social justice. This chapter also raises concerns about the impact of social justice concepts on various fields, including engineering and mathematics. The author suggests that these concepts are being imposed and that alternative forms of analysis are often not allowed or deemed biased, offensive, or violent. Then we can start by two questions. What is happening in our universities and why does it matter? But let's focus on the first question. What is happening in our universities? In first place, we can start by the shift in mathematics education, drawing upon indigenous worldview to move away from traditional concepts of mathematics as objects, truths, and knowledge, and towards a way of being in the world guided by first principles called mathematics. Later, we have academic censorship within social justice scholarship, where scholars who present alternative viewpoints or challenge dominant narratives face backlash, calls for retraction of their work, and even threats to their careers and personal safety. The presence of shoddy and unethical scholarship produces a crisis of confidence, since some scholarship on gender, race, and sexuality is rigorous and empirical. Also, we found the perception that issues related to campus protest and intolerance among students are overhyped and limited to a few activists and elite universities. Furthermore, troubling examples are given to illustrate the impact of certain ideologies on various aspects of society. And the text emphasizes the need for rigorous scholarship on social justice issues. Finally, the text highlights the formation of a social justice industry. Now, this is important because, firstly, it helps us recognize the influence of social justice scholarship and ideology on students. In second place, the ideas and culture of social justice are not limited to the academic sphere. And in third place, the influence of social justice ideologies extend beyond universities into the public sphere.
Now, we're going to talk about how these theories of social justice affect the broader world. For that, it's important to say that the most visible manifestation of social justice scholarship is social justice activism. Activists of social justice are very visible on social media, and particularly for punishing people who are influential within media and the arts. Here, it's important to talk about the concept of cancel culture. It refers to the punishment of celebrities, artists, athletes, and other prominent individuals who have spoken against social justice, most of the time unconsciously, for some pictures, jokes, or comments in their social networks. This practice often involves the destruction of someone's career and reputation for something that they may have said a long time ago. For example, the presenter Helen DeGeneres was censured by tweeting a humorous picture of herself appearing to ride on the back of Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt. Despite she published that image as a joke, some activists consider it as a clear example of racism and attacked her until she was censured. Something similar happened with a picture published by Sofia Vergara on Instagram, in which she supported American athletes at the Olympic Games at 2021. Some Colombians received it as an offensive and attacked her for supporting another country, and accused her for denying her origins, for not representing her country, and even for denigrating Colombian people. Social justice has an impact in the entertainment industry. They assume that racist and supremacist attitudes are omnipresent and looks closely until it finds examples. It will calculate the proportion of women, people of color, trans people, gays, or lesbians in a book, song, or movie. and ask the reason for not represent minority groups or for appropriating aspects of minority groups. This misrepresentation or underrepresentation of this group is understood to erase minority and deny their validity to exist. In movies, we see demands that actors only play characters from their own identity groups, so a straight woman cannot be allowed to play a lesbian or trans woman in a film. J.K. Rowling was condemned for not including people of color among her male protagonists, and having no explicit gay or trans character in the Harry Potter books. Rihanna was accused of appropriating Chinese culture and Beyoncé for appropriating Indian Bollywood styles in her song, are some examples of the influence of these ideas in society.
All of these come from activists who have adopted theory. Different companies are also called to account for their products. For example, the company Dove had to apologize for showing a publicity in which a black woman take off a t-shirt and became white. Despite the company clarify that their intention was to promote the variety of color skins that have been used in their products, people received as a clear case of racism. Large corporations have been in social justice pressure. Their main goal is, after all, to make money. Companies such as Google or the BBC have fired employees based on complaints in social justice terms and brought attention through social media of that. There is also an impact in medicine activism that holds that disability and obesity are socially constructed and that attempts to combat them are rooted in the hatred of disabled and obese people. Some concrete examples of problems rooted in disability studies are found in activism around autism, deafness, mental illness, and even the idea of body positivism. But the problem is that the activism makes it harder to those more severely affected to receive support. Activists consider that injustice is everywhere. In the UPN, we can evidence, for example, in a poster that says, "Neither diet nor fashion nor lifestyle, veganism is a political responsibility," which tells us that if a person eats meat, he or she becomes an irresponsible individual in the society. But it is true? What do you think that we as future teachers can do to change this situation in our context?
The author says that these social changes exemplify the postmodern principle and themes in action. This tells us that postmodernism, now in an applicable and refined form, is not only alive and well, but rapidly becoming increasingly dominant within our societies. For that, they mention two important books: The Coding of the American Mind, that centers on psychology, and The Rise of Victimhood Culture, that centers on sociology. Despite they have different approaches, they are complementary. These are different aspects of the same phenomenon, and there are some of the psychological problems that arise from theory. In the coddling of the American mind, we can evidence the great untruths. We have the committed to always trust one's feelings rather than trying to be objective or charitable. That reflects that social justice focus on experiential over objective knowledge. The belief that people are fragile and that they are weakened by unpleasant or upsetting experiences is theorized within social justice activism, where marginalized people experiences and emotions are authoritative. White people's experiences, emotions, and arguments, unless they are agree with social justice, can only be considered as signs of fragility, rather than as a defensible positions. This is related to the belief that life is a battle between good people and bad people, as represented by dominant and marginalized discourses, in which some people try to maintain oppressive systems of power and privilege at the expense of others. In the rise of the culture of victimhood, the authors talk about the different ways to solve problems over time. They mention the honor culture and the dignity culture. In a honor culture, it's important to refuse to be dominated by anyone. People are highly sensitive to offenses and respond to any indication of disrespect with immediate aggression or even violence. In a dignity culture, people are encouraged to ignore most offenses, be less sensitive to verbal insults, to work most problems out between individuals, and resolve serious conflicts by legal means, rather than by taking matters into their own hands. In victimhood culture, statues come from being seen as victimized. Consequently, it works to generate sympathies in others and to make public cases for help. As a result, it tends to read power imbalances and victimizations into many interactions, and even occasionally invents them, to exploit what the other referred to as the natural moral currency of the victimhood. Why is it important to mention these books? Well, because the rise of this culture has a great deal to do with the postmodern conception of the world as constructed in system of power and privilege, which assumes that oppression is omnipresent, seeks to make that oppression visible, and aims to dismantle it. Victims vindicate theory and obtain status with those who subscribe to it.
Hello everyone. So I'm going to continue with social justice institutionalized. So it is when a theory is introduced into a closed system or a group of people, and this group expose a problem according to the theory, and then they interpret systematically the problem. So they consider that the problem is the institution, in this case the university. So the result is a toxic battleground around the theory. It is possible evidence this at UPN. For example, the feminism theory is introduced into a closed system of girls, and they consider that there are problems in the UPN, but they identify this problem systemically. So they consider that the problem is the institution. So this group of feminism closed the A build at 7 a.m. and forced students to attend students' assembly with the intention of impose gender studies cátedra for a graduate of UPN. And to clarify, the problem here is how the theory is interpreted and how and then expose that the problem is in the institution. So for continue about the theory, always look good on paper. The best theory can fall in practice. This chapter show the communism as example of it. So as we can evidence in the real life, communism in practice has negative consequences in a political or economical country. For example, Cuba. But example in UPN, we can talk about English and French syllabus. As we know, the curricula of this program has an emancipatory critical approach. But some decision in the language department proves the opposite, because it reflects a very imperative vision. So, therefore, it is idealistic. And the real problem it is that the purpose and the goals are focused on the ideas, but not in a realistic way of do the things, or even to perceive the reality. For finish, it's important that you guys respond the question on the forums, because your answer will be used in activity class. So the link is on description of the video, and well, answer before the class please. Bye bye guys, see you later.